That was an interesting answer from Ralf Rangnick, that managing Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, look, in a way, it seems obvious. If you have one of the great footballers, it is going to be a challenge because you won't have had experience of doing that ever before. On the other hand, it was a sort of nod to managing a big personality, a big voice in the dressing room.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges. Again, whatever he can do on the pitch, you're obviously looking at what he's doing away from the pitch. Obviously, there was an incident last week when he was away for a few days. If he did do that without permission, then he's out of order, and the manager's got his, put a marker down and say that's unacceptable. And I've heard one or two other players have done that over the last few months. So, in terms of the culture of the club, that's unacceptable. But you also have to manage the player and say, listen, when he's fit and available and he's in that form, then he's got to play for Man United because ultimately they need results. They need to get in that top four. They have to look at the bigger picture. The manager there is probably thinking, I just need to get over the next few months. I need to try and get in the top four. Certainly try and win against Atletico and see what happens from there and not get too bogged down with the bigger picture. Just get over the line in some of these matches because Ronaldo's not going to change. He's going to challenge you, but that's what the good players do. But you have to stroke their ego a little bit, but also let them know who the manager is. But when you're only in there for a few months, that's very, very difficult. I know it's easy for us to sit here and say you've got to sort that out, but when you've got big personalities like that and your contract's only for another 2 or 3 months, players will take advantage of that.
It's an interesting one, and Manchester United do need to look forward rather than to the past. But you have personal experience in different ways of how Sir Alex Ferguson would manage big personalities in the dressing room. And it would feel as though once a player got to a point where the personality he felt was too big for the football club, it would be the player who wasn't part of it anymore. Does it feel that there's a different power dynamic at Manchester United now?
Oh, absolutely. Sir Alex Ferguson had control because of his success.
Yeah, but Gary, it doesn't mean to say he didn't make mistakes.
I didn't say he didn't make
mistakes. I know
mistakes.
you don't, but I just want to make that clear. Everyone talks about ex-managers saying they were on power and control as if they never made mistakes. They made wrong decisions as well.
Sir Alex Ferguson can make decisions in the dressing room at Manchester United with complete control, backing from the club. Ralf Rangnick's in there for 4 or 5 months. He's got no strength of position beyond this next couple of months. So the players, to be fair, can take more liberties with that side of things. And Roy's just mentioned there, if Cristiano Ronaldo's gone back to Portugal last week because he wasn't selected, that's not good. But what can Ralf Rangnick do about it? He's got an impossible situation where he has to try and get into the top four. So he either has to put him back in the team on Thursday, Friday this week, or he leaves him out again and the situation exaggerates and gets even worse. So he's a bit of an impossible position because he hasn't got the strength of control. What he does have, if we believe what we were told when he came over, is a 2-year consultancy agreement where he could say to the next manager, this is what I've seen in my 3, 4, 5 months at the club and this is what I've not liked. So those players have to be careful if he has got any real power with selecting the next manager.
Gary, you know that you say there, though, what message does that send out to the rest of the players? For Cristiano, look, he's a superstar. He's an icon, of course he is, but what he did last week, supposedly, what does that send to the rest of the players?
It obviously is a week. I think there's big problems in that dressing room. I really do at this moment in time between the sort of what would be characters in the dressing room that exist. I don't think it's great at all. I think to be fair, if Tottenham had got one in front today at any point in that game, you'd have seen it capitulate quite quickly. I think the strength, there's not a deep spirit in that dressing room, I don't think, that you see in games. The performances are very patchy. You get the impression when you see Ralf Rangnick's interviews that he's not enjoying the team that much. It's not really in his name or in his spirit or how he wants to play. He's just trying to get through to the end of the season the best he can and do the best job he can, and he's plastering over cuts and wounds that I think are deep.
It doesn't look a good dressing room. And we criticised Man United last week, and people said, well, they were just up against a really good team against Man City. No, but they've given up in other matches. They've given up against Watford in the second half when Ollie lost his job. They gave up against Liverpool. They've got previous, but the manager has to do is still stroke their egos and try and manage it and get over the line. And the reason is, and it's not a good dressing room, but they've got some talented players, but that's the reason why Man United are struggling to get to 4th, and they're getting beaten by Middlesbrough in the Cup, and they're getting beaten by West Ham at home in the Cup. That spirit and that fight is not there in this group of players. We saw a little bit of tonight. We saw brilliance from Ronaldo, but the problems are still there for Man United, and that's why, at this moment in time, Man United are competing for 4th position. That's the best it's going to be for a while.
And maybe that's part of the challenge that Rangnick is talking about is, if there was a disagreement in midweek, if there was a disagreement about whether or not he was going to take part in the City game, he then comes back and the reaction will always be good on the pitch. So maybe It's, you know, if you take.
Yeah, but the problem over the next few weeks, Kelly, might be tonight is everyone's happy because they won the game and Ronaldo's got a hat-trick. But in a few weeks, he might have a game, he think, I'm tempted to leave Ronaldo out because I want to play a certain way or whatever it might be, or Ronaldo might need a couple of days rest. And he leaves him out. Is he worried that all the players looking going, well, what's Ronaldo going to do now? And it's just not Ronaldo. If he's got other senior players who aren't the greatest pros on the planet, then the young players at Man United would look at it and go, is that how you behave? And when you've got a manager who hasn't got that power of control, it filters through to the players, the younger players, and all of a sudden, I use the word culture. It's players getting into bad habits. The young lads looking at senior players going, oh, is that how you behave? Go, no, that's not how you behave.
Well, you're going to have some spirit on Tuesday against Atletico.
Of course.
They were terrible over in Madrid. And there's one thing you have to show as a group of players. When things aren't going right, you guys have gone through it and you won everything. What you have is some spirit. 15 minutes in a game, 20 minutes a game, we roll our sleeves up and we dig our heels.
Oh, they're up against it.
Do you know what I mean? They're up against it on Tuesday. So today it's gone all right. Guys have said that, but it's when the going gets tough, and it was tough in Madrid, and it's going to be tough on Tuesday.
But they still have moments of quality, but
they've got quality
that won't be enough maybe for the next round.
It's not going to be enough just to get through. You've got to go through games. Last week, they haven't got as much quality as Manchester City, so you need that spirit.
And the two teams at the top at the moment, the managers have got complete control in their clubs. Complete trust, faith, belief, all the way through. You know, Pep can leave out Raheem Sterling last Sunday in the derby. No one bats an eyelid. Brought Jack Grealish in. No one thought that would probably happen before the game brings him. No one even thinks about it. Just get on with it because he's got complete control. No one questions him. Manchester United haven't got that, and they haven't had that for a number of years.
But if players are left out, and I expect players to be upset, and I'm sure the Liverpool players and Man City players, when they're missing big games, they're upset. But it's how you manage that.
The difference is, though, they get results, no, right?
Yeah, which obviously, that covers the cracks a little bit.
But it's how the players react as well, Roy, to be honest with you. I think the worst thing about a player being left out and not accepting that decision, the thing I always used to think when I was in the dressing room, is that it's completely disrespectful to the players who've been left out the previous week, and they've come in, you know, you might be playing a lot, and all of a sudden, you've been left out. What about the lads who've been sat on the bench for the last 4 weeks, and the guy who might have come in to take your place, who's watched you? That's disrespectful. That's the bit I don't like about it.
He done it at Brentford. Remember, he was taken off against Brentford, and the manager's obviously looking at the bigger picture. There was a game coming up, and Ronaldo was upset, which is fine, but 20 minutes later, he was still upset. It was like, I don't mind you being upset. But again, there's lads come on, and actually the lad who come on, I think it might have been the Juncker de Lange, he actually scored.
Yeah.
So like, calm down, keep the head, be upset, but draw the line somewhere where you go, listen, at some stage you cross that line when you really are disrespecting your teammates. That's when the real trouble starts.
But I think that's the case, though. That if you don't accept being left out, obviously you might have a problem with the manager, but your mate that's gone into play for you, you've got to make sure you look after him. You've got to make sure you wish him all the best. We've all been left out at times where we thought, that's harsh. But you go into that dressing room and the guy who's took your place, you go and say, come on, have a good one today. And that's when you've got a great dressing room. Manchester United haven't got that dressing room at this moment in time. I think they'll probably be sat on the bench and watching their teammates thinking, I hope the guy that's gone in for me has a bad game today. I think there's a bit of that. I genuinely don't think it's that strong at all.
Gary, do you think Cristiano, when he came back on the first day, I said, he's not going to be able to play every single minute of the game.